Welcome back, y'all. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. Thank you for joining us today. I want to give you my thoughts and my grades on Tennessee versus Florida, like I always do on Sunday. So if y'all enjoy the content of this channel, please do us a major favor. Take the split second to like and subscribe to this channel if you have not already. And if you would like to support us one step further, you can either donate or you can join this channel, or actually you could do both. So if you join, you will get exclusive content, all the film breakdowns, all that good stuff. That's a great way to do it. Or you could just, donate as little as $1 to our Cash App by scanning the Cash App QR code wherever it is on the screen. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing, man. I want to give the coaches grades first. We're going to start off with Coach Halsley, who is the offensive coordinator. Everything that we talked about this entire week coming out of that Arkansas game, and really over the past couple of weeks, is that things need to open up. He opened things up tremendously. We said there's too much inside zone. We need to start to try to run some more outside stuff. We did that. We said we need to let Nico use his legs more with some read options, things like that. We saw more of that. We also talked about maybe rolling Nico out to help the offensive line, also help him with his reads, kind of, make that field even smaller. We did that. We took more shot plays. We gave Nico more options with some really nice route combinations. He had plenty of check down options. He had hot reads. I mean, we utilized the entire field. Our quick game wasn't just quick wide receiver screens. It was hitches. It was slants. It was speed outs. We kind of got back to what makes this offense special. And yeah, we ran tempo and it looked like it worked sometimes, but I still kind of feel like we need to, just continue to slow that down so that Nico can read the field and kind of process things a little bit more. There's other reasons that we've talked about, but I think that just kind of getting into some more of those regular three-step drops, regular pass sets for the offensive line helped them out. We talked about that last week as well. The RPO pass blocking had not been great. So it just kind of feels like everything that we talked about, we saw Coach Halsley and the entire offensive staff try to implement. And I felt like the offense has, really benefited from that. And it's not where it needs to be 100%. It still has to get better. We got to pick it up. And now all we've done is taken the training wheels off of our offense. So we're kind of starting back over. What we saw last night, I believe, is going to be the new floor for Tennessee's offense at this point in the season. And we had to do this, right? And for us to be able to get a win versus a hated rival in the Florida Gators, the way that we did, even if it is at home, I think that just means a whole lot for how this team can operate moving forward. So I would give Coach Halsley and really the entire offensive staff a solid A. Now let's flip it to defense, okay? Coach Tim Banks, this is probably going to be his last time as a Tennessee Vol facing Billy Napier as a Florida Gator, because we all know that Napier is probably about to get fired. And I think that Coach Tim Banks is probably going to end up finding a good head coaching job or offer this season. Maybe he sticks around if it's not the correct one. We don't know. But more than likely, both of those guys, or at least one of them, are going to be gone. So over the past few seasons, Coach Tim Banks, his defense has not performed the best versus Billy Napier's offense with Florida. All the misdirection stuff. Now, that could have been some of Coach Banks's scheme, but I think it was more based off of the talent or lack thereof that we had out there on the field. And I hate to say that, but it just is what it is. So I think that now that we had more talent, we saw that his scheme, his game plan actually worked. And it wasn't perfect, but about 95% of those plays, y'all, after watching the film, you could tell that our defense knew what Florida was trying to do. That helped us out tremendously. So we are taking those strides. Obviously, we talked a lot throughout this entire week. If y'all haven't watching this channel, then maybe man-to-man coverage wouldn't be the best idea on as many plays. You know what I mean? We need to play a little bit more zone cover two, things like that. We mixed it up beautifully. I think that we played man whenever we needed to. We brought the blitz in perfect situations down and distance. And I think that our players executed well for the most part. So all of those things, it's not just about Coach Banks. It's about the entire defensive staff. I think that they did a very nice job. So I will also give them an A, very solid A. If I could give them very close to like an A+, like if, let's say like a 99 would be an A+, I would say that our staff on defense is going to get about a 98. So great job there. Now on to Coach Heupel. Obviously him basically being like the CEO, he's going to have to help out with the offense, defense, and special teams. We operated things so much better than we have over the past couple of weeks. We came into this game with nice game plans. Our players were prepared. They watched the film, they practiced hard. You could just tell. You could tell by how a team plays. We were ready for Florida this weekend. And, I think that pretty much all of that has got to fall on Coach Heupel. I don't know exactly what he switched up, but he got things correct. And I heard him in his in his post game presser. You could tell that he still wants for the offense to take that next leap, and it can. So whenever I'm giving all these grades, it's not about necessarily how the players executed. It's more about how prepared were they? What was the scheme like? Should players have been in the correct spots and maybe they busted? Things like that. So I think that our staff from top to bottom did a beautiful job last night. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our offense. I want to start off with Tennessee's offensive line. All right, so these are going to be our blocking grades from Pro Football Focus. If y'all have been watching this channel, then y'all know I don't really look at the actual grades. I'm looking more at certain numbers. So for this, just starting off, we're going to be paying attention to the pressures that each offensive lineman gave up. And 1 through 4 right here, and there's 2 4s, but all those players, those are, our starting offensive line. Then you've got number 7, and then the other number 7 right up under him. Those are the guys who came in. So Tennessee really only gave up 3 sacks in this game. And, it does say that we gave up 2, but again, it is actually 3. Again, that is why I do not pay too much attention to what Pro Football Focus has to say all the time. But really, those sacks all came from Jackson Lampley and Dane Davis being in this game. It was 3 consecutive sacks, and they were in for all those plays. Now, you could take a look right here at Lance Hurd, and you can see it says that he gave up 1 sack. The sack that he did give up, it wasn't necessarily on him. I think it was more on Jackson Lampley, who struggled a lot in this game, especially as far as pass blocking goes. But it was more pressure coming from his guy, and then Nico has to go to his left, and that's where, Lance Hurd plays at left tackle. So that's kind of how that sack happened. And I think that outside of that, like, if we just took out the backup guys, Jackson Lampley and Dane Davis, our starting 5, they played very well. I think that they kept Nico upright for the most part. Wasn't too many pressures given up. But we'll dive a little bit deeper into these numbers. Up at the top, Cooper Mays, he had 32 pressure opportunities. He only allowed 1. Andre Carey, he had 32 pressure opportunities. He allowed 0. Now, I do disagree with that. There was another play where, actually, D. Sam had to step up and help Andre Carrick out because he whiffed. And D. Sam did a beautiful job of stepping up and blocking, actually, number 88, who we talked a lot about this week. Let's go on to Lance Hurd. He had 32 pressure opportunities, and he gave up 1 pressure. We just talked about that, and also 1 sack. Now, let's go on to Spraggs. They're saying that he had 26 opportunities with 0 pressures. Now, he didn't always look perfect, okay? Maybe he didn't give up any pressures. I don't know exactly how they measure that, but I would say that, I would say that he needs to kind of step some things up just a little bit. And really, for all these guys, everyone needs to step up some. A lot of it, to me, is more about technique and fundamentals. We kind of tend to lean a little bit too far forward, and we end up disengaging, or, we end up kind of like getting tossed around just based off of that. But John Campbell right here at right tackle, he had 26 pressure opportunities, and he gave up a big fat 0. So you got to love that. Now let's take a look at Jackson Lampley, who did come in. He played, I want to say it might have been right guard, but it was right or it was left guard. Whatever it was at one of the guard spots. And he had 6 opportunities, and he gave up 2 pressures. That is really bad. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, he did not play up to his standard. Dane Davis right here at number 7 also has 6 pressure opportunities, and he gave up 0. So I would say that, yeah, Dane Davis, if you're looking especially at his pass blocking at a 19.6, that looks about right to me. He did absolutely horrible. Dane Davis, I think that he did solid. And really, I mean, if I'm kind of like looking at this stuff, everyone outside of maybe Andre Carrick, I think his is too low, but that's about right. You're seeing that both of our tackles, Lance Hurd and John Campbell, at a 78.2, so the exact same grade. Now let's talk a little bit more about them as run blockers. Again, we're not going to focus too much on those grades. I'll just kind of tell you what I saw. I think that we did a really nice job there. We got up to the second level. We weren't always necessarily moving bodies, but you don't always have to. We're walling guys off, whenever that was necessary. So I love what we did from a run blocking perspective, especially with our starting 5. The lanes and the creases were there just based off of, again, the offensive line and their starting 5. So if I had to give them a total grade from top to bottom, again, I'm focusing only on the top 5. I would give them a very solid B+. There were some things that we could have, cleaned up, and we are still growing, like we kind of talked about, kind of getting into more of those pass sets. I think that we looked a whole lot better. Also, I will say this, that Florida brought 3 a lot. They dropped 8 several times, but they also brought some crazy blitzes and stunts. And the offensive line portion of the, pass protection picked it up well. Now, while we're here, let's just go ahead and take a look at some of our running backs. So actually, we'll start off right here with D. Sam. Let's talk about what he did as far as pass blocking. He had 6 opportunities, gave up 0 pressures. I think that he looked good, a lot better than he has. the main thing for both of these running backs is going to be being able to ID who they're supposed to be picking up. So they did a much better job there, but he did hold up a lot better than he has throughout the entire season. It still wasn't perfect, but, I think that he's definitely taking some nice strides. Right here, Deshaun Bishop, he had 5 opportunities and he did give up 1 sack, which was off of, I guess, maybe that one hurry, but then they have 2 pressures. To me, hurries and pressures are the exact same thing, but he has to kind of pick it up because he's starting to get confused about when he needs to go low, when he just, kind of like needs to try to hit somebody right in their sternum. But he is still taking strides. So although that doesn't look great, he has, I would say, improved from last weekend. Now let's talk about Miles Kitzman right here. He had 2 pass rush opportunities and he gave up 0 sacks, so that's great. And then Holden Stays, he had 1 pass rush opportunity. He also gave up 0 pressures. So I would say, from top to bottom, just as far as our starters go, outside of those running backs, things look very, very solid. But, again, the offensive line does get a B+ for their grade. All right, now let's talk about our skill players on offense. And of course, we're going to be starting off with Nico. He went 16 for 26, which is about 61.5%. It's not absolutely just horrible, but he can play better than that. You want for your quarterbacks to be closer to about 63% or more. So he's pretty close to that. Threw for 169 yards, no touchdowns. He had a really bad interception where he just kind of stared things down. So again, as we kind of talked about to start this thing off, we open things up a whole lot more. I feel like this is where Tennessee's floor is at, at this point in the season. And Nico, I think that he operated with more confidence. You saw him playing a lot more loose because, whenever you as a coach let your players play loose, they feel that, you know what I mean? Like whenever you give them those opportunities, they play loose. But, he did miss some opportunities. Some of them was, maybe just wide receivers dropping the football and things like that. But I would say that for the most part, okay, he comes out in that first drive and he does have that fumble on that read option. And just as far as his rushing numbers, he had 8 rushing attempts is what they're saying with 1 yard, but it was 2 or 3 plays that he did scamper for anywhere between 10 to like 25-ish yards that were all called back off of some bogus holding calls. Didn't really touch on that, but offensive line, I mean, those were not real holding calls. Either way, I think that he is playing with more confidence. He just has to be able to kind of identify what the defense is giving to him and stop staring things down. Now, he did have he had a few very good throws, but one right here, okay? He was throwing the football to Chris Brazzell on this dig in between 3 people. He threaded that needle. That is a top 0.00001% of people on the face of this planet can make a throw like that. So he did that. It was also a really good catch by Brazzell. Rolling out, saw some really nice throws to the sideline. He overthrew a couple of wide receivers deep, things like that. But I would say all in all, man, outside of, the fumble on that first drive and then that really bad interception, Nico actually managed our offense well. So I don't want to be too hard on him because, again, the training wheels got taken off and he's kind of like learning what he can and can't do on this level versus better competition with a whole lot more of a leash. So either way, I would give Nico about a B-. He did, again, he missed reads. I'm not overlooking any of that. He missed reads. People were open. Really, even on some of those sacks that we talked about, that's really more based off of the backup offensive line guys coming in. He's got to be able to go through his reads, not stare things down pre-snap. Once he gets to that point, which I know that that's going to come, he's got the physical capability and tools to make all the throws, do everything that you would want out of a quarterback. That stuff is coming. It'll probably take him. Hopefully he can get that done, or we'll start to see more of it coming up this weekend. But I would say that if we can win next weekend, if this team still has playoff hopes, by the time we get to the playoffs, Nico is going to be balling, and he's going to be who everyone thought that he would be coming into this thing. So I'm going to give Nico Iamaleava a B- at the quarterback position. Now let's talk about Tennessee's running game. Okay, mostly, obviously, we're going to be talking about Tennessee's running back. So D-Sam, listen, 27 carries for 112 yards, 4.1 yards per carry with 3 tugs, and one of those was a walk-off touchdown in overtime. He runs so hard. He has great patience. He has great vision. He has good balance and just explosiveness, everything. He is a total running back. We talked some about him. Just as far as pass blocking, looked a whole lot better this weekend, but it still has to improve. I think that he played well. I still feel like he's a top 3 running back in this country. Now, the next player, Deshaun Bishop, 7 carries, 24 yards, 3.4 yards per carry with no touchdowns. He runs really hard too. Like we touched on, he needs to do a much better job in pass pro, but he's just, runs a whole lot like DeSamp does. They complement, I think, one another very well. A lot of times people think that to be able to complement, like you need that thunder and lightning. But we've got two guys that are a good mix of both. They're very balanced. And I think that they did a great job just in running, holding on to the ball, getting us extra stuff that might not have necessarily really been there, and just making us look a whole lot better. So proud of them for that. But the pass blocking portion of it has to improve. I'm going to give them a very, very solid B. Something else that I want to point out as we're just kind of going through this is that Tennessee was able to outrush Florida, as y'all can see right here. We had 43 attempts for 143 yards, 3.3 yards per carry with 3 tugs. And then Florida had 40 attempts for 138, 3.5 yards per carry. And as we've talked about pretty much all week, the team that outrushes the other in this series historically has always won. So the running backs played a very, very major role in Tennessee winning this game. And actually, we'll come on back right here to the passing numbers. Y'all can see that Florida was able to outpass Tennessee 223 yards with 2 touchdowns, 1 pick to Tennessee's 169. So things look, obviously the passing game has got to improve, and I think that is coming. Now, let's talk about Tennessee's wide receivers and our tight ends. Up at the top, Squirrel White, man, 5 catches, 71 yards, 14.2 yards per carry with an AC, deal going on, dealing with a whole bunch of shoulder pain, even still diving and trying to make those catches. And you see him kind of like his arm kind of looks like it's hanging and stuff. Played through a whole lot of pain. He's a dog. I'm very, very proud of what he did out there. Those numbers aren't absolutely fantastic, but whenever you look at the fact that he's playing with that AC issue, I think that it's all the more impressive. Now, the next player, Chris Brazzell, 3 catches for 49 yards. He had, like we had kind of touched on, that one catch that came from Nico over the middle with 3 people on him. That was a very, very tough catch. He had a couple of other good catches. Now, one of them was on the sideline that he couldn't get his feet in bounds, but man, he pretty much mossed that secondary player. So I'm proud of him for that. This kind of feels like he's starting to pick up his confidence more. If we can start to lean on him, if we can trust him, which I think that we're starting to get there, then man, dude, this wide receiving core is going to be crazy. So next player, Chaz Nimrod, he had 1 catch for 16 yards. He struggled. He did not play very well. If you look at that last drive, whenever we're about to go into overtime and we're trying to get into field goal range, he was wide open on this slant. At first, I thought that Nico just missed him, but the ball hit both of Chaz Nimrod's hands and he just dropped it. There was another time where Nico, this is kind of on Nico too, but he's staring Brew down and Brew's running this in, and it looked like Chaz Nimrod, whatever route, it looked like he ran like a hitch, but he ran it right where Nico was trying to throw it, and the ball just ends up incomplete. But Brew would have been open, and actually Chaz Nimrod was open on that too. But that's not what Nico was expecting. The players have got to do what's called, because things happen too quick for you to be able to always just see it in real time, especially for a redshirt quarterback that's still trying to figure things out. So I think that he's got to be a little bit more consistent from that perspective. But he did a pretty solid job of getting open. Nico missed him on a, deep ball one time, and Nico threw the ball about 5 yards, 2 or 3 yards out of bounds. So, I think that Chaz, he would probably say that he did not play his best game. Outside of that, Dante Thornton, I only thought that he came in for overtime, but as I watched the film, I realized that Tennessee kind of snuck him in throughout this game. I think that we used him more as a decoy, and then right there in overtime, he got that 1 catch. And I kind of feel like Coach Heupel wanted to, get Nico that game-winning touchdown pass. I mean, I could be over-speculating with that, or maybe he just felt like, hey, Dante's a guy that we trust. But that's the biggest thing, is that Dante has turned into a player that's making these plays in some very critical situations. He's not batting a single eye. That was my biggest question mark about him coming out last season. So I'm proud of what he did, even though, the numbers don't say a whole lot. I think that he played well. And that's going to be it for the wide receivers that had catches. It just wasn't that many. We do need to kind of open things up, get some more guys some opportunities, and I think that is going to be coming up here hopefully shortly. Now let's talk about our tight ends. Ethan Davis, he had 2 catches for 10 yards. We tried to implement him more. That one little tunnel screen that we like to run with our tight ends, we did a little bit more of that. I want to see us use our tight ends even more on those seams, because that should be there, especially off of the RPO game. Now, what I do love is that Halsey kind of drew up some stuff where the tight ends were running some very short, just like comeback routes, almost hitches. But it was almost just like, hey, find the soft spot inside of the zone and turn around. That Nico also missed those sometimes, or there was at least one that I did see him miss with. Either way, I love that. You know what I mean? So we need to start to utilize our tight ends a lot more in our passing game, because we've got guys that can do it. And then also Holden Stays. He has 2 catches for 5 yards. So, guys, I mean, they just didn't really have a whole lot of opportunities. But whenever they did get their opportunities, I think that they made the most out of it. So starting off with the wide receivers, I would give them I'm going to go with the B plus just because I think that, there was some more out there that we could have done. And a whole lot of that is going to be coming from Chaz Nimrod. So wide receivers will get a B plus from me. Tight ends, as we kind of touched on before, I think that they did a really nice job blocking. We talked about the pass blocking, but even with the run blocking, I mean, they're still kind of playing with that edge. It's not always perfect, but you can tell that the effort is there and they're doing enough that we should find success on those plays. So I'm going to give the tight end group an A minus, and that's going to do it for us on offense. Now let's flip the page to Tennessee's defense. We always start up front. This is Pro Football Focus, and these are our pass rush grades. I'm going to be looking more at the pressures for all these players up front. So number 1, Joshua Josephs. He had 21 pressure opportunities, and he got 8 pressures. That's outstanding, but it's not just about his pass rush. He's one of the best players that we have on defense, period. I mean, he stops to run well. He's making a whole lot of plays, so I'm very proud of him. He's probably the most improved player on this entire team. Next is going to be Bryson Eason, and he had 18 pass rush opportunities with 3 pressures. Next, we have Dominic Bailey, who had 18 pass rush opportunities with 5 pressures. That's beautiful. Big O is going to be next with 17 pass rush opportunities and 3 pressures. What y'all will notice is that the guys that play more on the ends will get more pressures just because they're not going to be getting double teamed. The guys that play on the inside have got to kind of maintain pass rush lanes and things like that, which I think we did a great job of. Now, James Pierce Jr., with 14 pass rush opportunities, he had 4 pressures. Jackson Moore, I think he had a really nice game. 12 pass rush opportunities, and he got 2 pressures. Omar Nomalot, only 11 pass rush opportunities, and he got 5 pressures. So on almost 50% of the times that he can rush that passer, he is getting some type of pressure. Tyree West, 10 pass rush opportunities with 2 pressures. Jason Jenkins, 9 pass rush opportunities, 1 pressure. Caleb Herring, he had 8 pass rush opportunities, and then he got 1 pressure. David Hobbs had 6 pass rush opportunities with 1 pressure. So, our guys looked really good. Actually, we can also talk about Big E right here. He had 4 pass rush opportunities, and he got 0 pressures. But either way, y'all, I think that our guys up front, they do a great job, not just of getting pressure on the quarterback, but kind of, fitting into their gaps, making sure that our linebackers can stay clean, and also making plays outside of the box. There's one with Jackson Moore where obviously he's going to be playing on the line of scrimmage, and he stops this wide receiver tunnel screen from breaking the distance just from playing with effort. And there's a million different plays that we probably could highlight from each of the individual plays that we just talked about right here. But very, very, very proud of them. I would give them a very solid A. It's not perfect, so it cannot be an A plus. But if an A plus is a 99 overall, then they were right at a 98. All right, now let's talk about that second level, Tennessee's linebackers, and we'll just be kind of taking a look at all of the stats right here on defense. We are going to be on the right side for those of y'all that don't know. First and foremost, Keenan Pili going down was huge in this game. We knew that the linebackers and the safeties were going to be critical. They always have been versus Florida. It's just the way that their scheme operates. But AC, man, Arion Carter, he stepped up in a very, very major way. He looked absolutely gorgeous getting into his run fits, beating the blocks with his speed, with his strength. He mixed it up. He's not just covering grass. He's actually covering people. That's why he was able to get that 1 interception. And I believe that he had 4 tackles in this game, plus that interception. So I think that he played very well. Now let's talk about Jeremiah Thielander, who had 5 tackles in this game. He's having to come in and play a little bit more than he has been throughout the entire season. I think that he played well for the most part. Now, his deal is that he's going to have to kind of get to his run fits a little bit quicker. He's going to have to be faster to beat those blocks, or he's going to have to be stronger and push the offensive lineman to get up to the second level tight ends, whoever, back into the hole to slow things down. That's the next step for him, but I think that he is kind of slowly getting there. So those two played well. Really, Arion Carter would be in a totally different league. I would say that just him by himself, very solid A, almost an A plus. But really, if you look at what we're supposed to be doing inside of our scheme, it might have been an A plus, and I would probably give Jeremiah Thielander by himself close to about a solid B, just to let y'all know what the differences are from what I saw on film. Now, outside of that, listen, we ran a whole lot of 4-3. So Caleb Perry was out there. Jalen Smith was also out there. Caleb Perry, he's got to play with a lot more heart, with a lot more passion. There was a play where we are in that 4-3, which just means we have 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. We take one of the secondary players off the field. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But whenever we've got all those linebackers, I want to say it was Jeremiah Telander and Arion Carter, that they flow right and they kind of force the play back to Caleb Perry. And he's just like lackadaisical. He ends up getting blocked and he kind of gives up on that play and it goes for 10, 15 yards. So he's got to play with a whole lot more oomph, or we got to find somebody else. It sucks that Edwin Spillman has missed as much time as he had, because I feel like he would be a guy that could step up in a major way for this team right now. We don't know if Keenan Pili is going to be out, and if he is, how long he's going to be out. But I would anticipate that he will probably miss at least 1 week or so. Or, if he does come back next weekend versus Bama, he's probably not going to be at 100%. But again, I hate to speculate. That's just my thought. So the linebackers have got to step up. So, Caleb Perry, I don't like what I saw from him. Then we can also talk about Jalen Smith. He started off very shaky. So his problem is he guesses wrong. He goes to the wrong hole a little bit too much. Let's make sure I'm just scrolling through here, just in case y'all want to take a look at those numbers from all these players. But yeah, he's a little bit, he guesses wrong. He's a little bit too slow sometimes to get to the correct run fit. But what I learned, or what I saw, is that he is getting better. Like, he got better just throughout this game, which is great. I think that the more reps that he gets, he will get better and better. But really, we've only got 2 linebackers that I would trust at this point, just because the other 2 guys who we just mentioned, man, they're kind of like liabilities at that position. So I would give our linebacking core from top to bottom, everyone who did play last night, I'd give them about a B minus. Again, it's just a tale of 2 completely different players, or I guess of 4 completely different players. But you already know that AC and JT, they're in a different league right now than Caleb Perry and then Jalen Smith. And I would say that Jalen Smith looks like we can trust him more than Caleb Perry at this point. So that's not great. Now let's talk about Tennessee's star position, which it was really only Boo Carter playing, and he had a fantastic game. But he's just a true freshman. Christian Harrison, we know that he was banged up coming into this one. So I think that that's the main reason that Tennessee played a whole lot more 4-3 and brought another linebacker onto the field and took that secondary player, which was our star guy, Boo Carter, took him off the field just to kind of minimize as many reps as possible. So from that perspective, I mean, I think that our linebackers did step up, because they were out there sometimes versus, they were having to guard wide receivers and things like that. But, I think the Boo, man, I mean, just look at those numbers. 7 tackles, 1 sack, and then 1.5 tackles for loss. Really good. I mean, he's a very sound tackler. You know what I mean? And you could tell that he's starting to pick up that confidence, which is huge. Like, we definitely need that. It would be nice if we could find somebody else that we trusted to play star. We need to have at least, I would say, 3 guys there that we really trust. Really, 4 would be better. I would feel more comfortable that way, but we're just not there at this point. And I don't think it's because we don't have anyone that's capable. It's just because limited amount of practice reps in a huge game. Every game from now on is going to be huge because we have to win them all. But either way, I love what Boo Carter did at the star position. I'm going to give him a very solid A, right on the cusp of being an A+. Now let's talk about Tennessee's cornerbacks. Actually, I want to pull up the coverage grades right here. And y'all can see right here at number 2, Jamal McCoy. Y'all already know that man is lockdown, shut down. I mean, his entire side, whether it's a slant, whether, the football's going deep, he had 5 targets and he only allowed 1 catch. That was probably because he was playing cover 3, or he was playing a deeper coverage, and Florida just threw a shorter pass. So if it's just strictly man-to-man, that dude is the real deal. Also did a really nice job coming up and tackling, so I'm proud of him. Now let's take a look at Ricky Gibson. He had 5 targets and 3 catches. It's going to be very similar. I don't remember, outside of maybe like one where he was playing cover 3, but he's isolated on the backside. So that should have been man where Florida was able to hit him on the speed out. So either way, I mean, that's not horrible. He came up and he tackled well. Obviously, on that 4th and short when Florida was in that red zone, I think at least they were close to it. He made that big time stop also once Keenan Pili went down. Man, Ricky Gibson was very heavy inside of that box trying to help us tackle. So I love the fact about our cornerbacks this season that they are a lot more physical. I'm proud of how both of those guys played. Now, right here at number 9, Jalen McMurray. He had 0 targets, which is fine. I think that he played well. He's another one that helped us out just in making tackles and things like that. You can tell that all 3 of these guys are playing with a very high level of confidence. I'm going to give them another very solid A. I think that they played absolutely tremendous. Now let's talk about Tennessee safeties. Up at the top, Will Brooks, man, he played phenomenal. Not just in pass coverage, but again, coming up, getting into those run fits, helped us out so much because Jalen Smith and Caleb Perry and really, I mean, somewhat all of our linebackers were missing their run fits, and our safeties were able to really clean this stuff up. But Will Brooks would probably be maybe not guy number one. We're going to talk about somebody else here in just a minute, but he did a phenomenal job. I'm very proud of him. He had 2 total targets and only gave up 1 catch. So beautiful work by him. Now let's come on down. Kobe Thomas, he had 0 targets. Now I do seem to recall him coming up and trying to fill into a run gap one time where he kind of missed the tackle, but he at least slowed that player down. The secondary players, they are going to kind of miss some tackles every now and then just from a sheer, size and physics. Like these guys are big, they're strong, they're fast, and they're typically going to be bigger than our secondary guys. So it takes great fundamentals and technique to be able to, bring these guys down in the SEC. But either way, I think that Kobe Thomas, I think that he did good. Now, this guy right here at number 7, Christian Charles, he had 1 target. Looks like he did give up 1 catch. Either way, he played absolutely outstanding. He's rocking that number 14. I'm not going to say that he played like Eric Berry necessarily, but it wasn't on that level, but he did kind of, he was playing physical. All right, he was coming down making tackles at the line of scrimmage like a linebacker, and that was huge because once Keenan Pili went down and once we kind of saw, well, we've only really got 2 linebackers that we trust, and it's getting to crunch time. Maybe we bring in another safety and use them as a linebacker. I think that Christian Charles did that in this game. I think that he's in the running for a potential MVP based off of what he did. Some of the stuff it's not going to show up in your stat sheet, but he played very, very well. Super proud of him. Now, let's go on down to the bottom right here, Andre Turntine. Again, y'all, we kind of take the grades with a grain of salt, but this one could be pretty accurate because coverage, 31.7. I don't know that it was that bad, but it definitely wasn't good. That 1 touchdown that Florida scored late, I want to say that was probably their last touchdown. That was Andre Turntine. Now, that was a zone coverage that ends up turning into man, and Andre Turntine's got to do a much better job of not opening up his hips. His fundamentals need to get better. He takes bad angles. We've said that all season. And he's got to wrap up. He's got to tackle every single time. Again, I understand that sometimes people can maybe break some tackles, but it seems to happen a little bit more frequently with Andre Turntine. So I think that he needs to play a lot better. But all in all, y'all, the safety room did pretty solid. I'm going to give them a B+. All right, so from top to bottom, I think that Tennessee came out and we had a great game plan on both sides, or really in all 3 phases of the game, and we executed. Yeah, we had some penalties. Wasn't always perfect, but it wasn't as sloppy as what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. I have a whole lot of hope in this offense just because we're seeing things opening up. It's like you can kind of see, okay, like there's a little shimmer or, a sliver of light right there that Tennessee, if we just start to execute more, then we're going to hit on it. And this offense will be right back to what it has been in the past. I'm talking about 2022. I think that we can get there. It's probably not going to happen over the next week or so, but who knows? I think that if we can just find ways to win moving forward, by the time we get to like November, this offense should be looking very dangerous, and the defense is already elite. It's top 3 in this country, no questions asked. We can do everything at a really high level. We'll see what happens, with Keenan Pili, because losing him, that's a major blow to this team. But it's got to be a next man up mentality. I'm proud of what we did out there. I hope that y'all will enjoy this win. And tomorrow it's time for us to flip the page to Alabama. So it's going to be very short-lived. But thank y'all so much for tuning into this video and for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. And also, please leave your grades and leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.